Hey, what's more American than the story of a Mormon missionary from Idaho getting his first kiss and first sex in LA and Salt Lake City? That's America.
Yeah, that's,
USA,
you know
baby.
what? That's the America that we're all hoping and dreaming for.
In
That,
Biden's America.
yep.
Welcome to My Brother's Friend, and Me, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron,
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
and joining us this week is our longtime Twitter friend and Latter-day Saint expert, Jeff Davis. Jeff, how are you?
I really don't know about expert.
Well, you're the only one of us four who has experience with the Mormon Church besides, the missionaries visiting our college campuses. So,
Wait, I've watched 3 episodes of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I'm basically an expert.
all right. Well, Jeff is going to be here to be the arbiter of your knowledge. So, firstly, Jeff, thank you for coming on. I know that you're a busy man, and we have. How does it feel to be 25% of our audience? Firstly,
I think it's one thing to say how excited I am to be on the podcast. I think it's another thing to say how excited I am discussing the film that Mr. Green over here has chosen for us.
I'm
that's
being
fair.
Mr. Greened. I know I'm
Mr.
in
Green is
trouble.
their father.
Pastor Green, thank
That's
you very much.
Reverend.
All right. Before we can start betting on who can steal the most underwear, please be sure to like and comment on this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter at MBF and me. Oh God, where do we
Now-
start?
Before we pull a full Ash Ketchum and go full Mormon, I have to ask Jeff, are you the person that keeps disliking all of our YouTube videos?
So, no.
After a joke like that, I wouldn't blame him.
Unsubscribe.
Now I need to know who's actually doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's pretty obvious who they're hating on.
At this point, like, if it's not Jeff, there's gonna be like 3 other people it can be, and one of them is my girlfriend, so it's getting closer and closer just to revealing that she hates the podcast.
Well, I think this episode might rescue it because this week we are reviewing the 2003 or 2004 film, depending on how you slice and dice it, Latter Days, which is what I describe as the gayest Mormon film ever made.
And as
Yeah.
a Mormon, I'll weigh in. That's pretty accurate.
So I was back and forth between choosing this or the Book of Mormon. I knew I wanted Jeff on. Actually, my best friend growing up was Mormon, so I feel like we would always just share like batshit crazy stories about each of our, religious upbringing. But I decided, I wanted to fully immerse Jeff in this podcast experience and pick the wildest film I could think of.
It's a little mean, don't you think, Michael? Just be like, what movie should Jeff watch? The one that's like 80% pornography.
It is no more explicit than an R-rated straight person rom-com.
I mean, that's fair. The sex scenes were very sweaty, though.
So is sex.
Humorously so.
I mean, there's rated R, like, mainstream sex scenes, and then there are art house sex scenes, and these are art house.
Oh, yes.
They are lit exquisitely.
I want to say that, like, I do love that Michael has brought in the horniest movies, just by far.
I mean, Velocipaster was hot, don't get me wrong.
Velocipaster, listen, that dude was smuggling cantaloupes, we all know this.
So I figured we could start a little bit about Latter Days by talking a little bit about the film. So the director of this film, I knew I recognized the name somewhere. So he is an ex-Mormon gay man who moved to LA and came out, but insists that this story is not autobiographical at all.
He also has an incredible porn star name.
He does. So the film's director is C.J. Cox.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a little on the nose, don't you think?
He was the screenwriter for Sweet Home Alabama, which is one of my favorite straight people rom-coms. And, you know, it only makes sense that he would then write a gay Mormon rom-com. And honestly, like, we'll go through the plot, but truly, like, if you've seen a rom-com, you kind of get the gist of what's going to happen in this film. And then there are wild plot beats intertwined to remind you it is both gay and Mormon.
It was one of those where I'm like, man, one of these worlds feels so similar to what I'm used to, and then the Mormon stuff would show up, and I'm like, wow, okay, wow.
So I have another little fun fact about this film. So it, first of all, cost under $1 million to make, produce, and distribute all of that. Barely made that money back. However, it was filmed in 24 days.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And so the guy who later in the film plays the AIDS patient, he actually shot all of his scenes for the film in one day.
Wow.
Cool.
So they were
No wonder
very
the sex
efficient.
scenes were so sweaty.
Yeah. They went from one to the other to the other. So I'll take you through the plot. Feel free. And like, Jeff, we want you interjecting just as much as the rest of us because we want to hear what you think about this film too. I'll go through.
It might help the audience just understand, and also me. Jeff, do you want to just share like a quick blurb about like Mormonism in general, your feelings towards it, whatever you'd like to share?
Okay, so this might just be a good time of like saying that I was a missionary. I did serve a full 2-year mission. So my wife and I, we've been married for 6 years, but we both come from predominantly pioneer Mormon families. So we are generations deep in a church that's really only about 200 years old. So it's a big thing in our families, and almost everyone that we knew going to high school in Utah ended up serving missions. And so I went on a mission when I was 19 years old and served a mission in Argentina, which would be a very different experience than serving a mission here in the United States. So came back, my wife and I went to BYU, or Brigham Young University, the Mormon college that's here in Provo, Utah, and got the way you'll hear Mormons talk about it as being sealed in the temple or being married in the Mormon temple, was just the big leagues for like intense Mormonism, because that's where you're making the real long-term eternal life commitment, not just to yourself, but also to God and the church. And kind of like where we're at now. So we're pretty, the term that swung around is like ex-Mormon, and that's not really something that I think fits us, because there are ex-Mormons who are just as orthodoxic and orthopraxic in their opposition to the church as Orthodox Mormons inside the church. But we're definitely in a phase of stepping away from the church. Mormonism's great for a lot of things, but it's also got a lot of problems. And those problems, when you're inside the church and hoping that they change, and when you get to your late 20s and realize, this probably isn't going to change very much. I don't really like the way that the church acts and how the church teaches about certain things. That gets pretty exhausting. So for the last couple of years, we've pretty much stepped away quite a bit.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's good perspective for our audience. And I want to call out like how much of a big fucking deal it is, in my understanding, in Mormonism to be like part of those pioneer families, right? Like that is, you can trace your lineage back to a founder then, correct? Like one of the early members, basically.
Right. So like the earliest Davis, my last name is Davis, he was baptized into the church in the early 1840s in Nauvoo when Joseph Smith was still alive. And then,
Holy shit.
So, and my wife can trace her family line all the way back to those times. And so it's a big deal. And there actually is a thing in this movie where they talk about how important it is to have a familial disruption where all of a sudden you don't feel like one of your kids is going to heaven. That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. And not to bring up Salt Lake City again, but it's a real fucking big deal for Heather Gay from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, from the Gay family, also big.
Michael, you can't. You have to save this for your Real Housewives podcast.
Look,
which we
I'm going to
record
get a reality
immediately after.
show podcast, and it's going to be part of this network. Just you watch.
Real Housewives, Real Talk, Real Michael.
It'll also be a 90-Day Fiancé. Don't worry.
Oh man.
So with that in mind, Jeff's commentary is very valuable here because it takes us outside of all of our realms of knowledge. Beyond my PhD in reality TV, I don't have the direct experience that Jeff has. So I'm really excited to get his input on some of this. So we're going to begin with the most early 2000s thing I think I ever saw, and that is the opening shot to this film, which is like a music montage of LA, and like there are quick cuts, and you could tell they were so excited for that cheap early 2000s technology, and they were like, we're going to use it all.
What, did anyone else play the Zoe 101 theme song over this in their head too?
I was just about to say this looks like it's straight out of like a Disney Channel original movie, the soundtrack.
Just Zoe 101 blasting in my mind as this went on.
So when we get our shot of LA, we get a voiceover from our main character, whose name is not introduced until much later, and I think that's actually really important for this film, so I'm not going to name him just yet. We do find out in the title credits that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in this film, which I had forgotten about. I watched this film about 10 years ago.
Wait, he was?
Yeah!
Oh, you didn't notice?
Who was he?
It's the most distracting part of the movie.
Yeah!
He is
he's
the
asshole.
Yeah, he's the homophobe.
Oh! Oh!
This is my favorite segment of this podcast, which is, he's homophobic?
No, but it's not just that he's homophobic. He's homophobic, and that's pretty much it. That's all he is.
Yeah,
That's his whole character.
that's
which
his character.
I think sucks because, like, listen, we could talk in a bit about how the Mormon church is, like, probably a bad institution, but, like, all the Mormons that I've met have been ultra nice people, like, never like this, which I think is kind of shitty.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting perspective, right? Like coming from someone who like was in the church and homosexual, didn't come out until he had already left the church and left the area. I think that is a very clear, personal experience in the church. And it's kind of like, if you were to ask me versus my parents about like what a Baptist looks like, I think you would get very different answers.
It depends. If you ask our dad about like what
True,
like a specific Baptist is gonna look like, he'll roast the fuck out of them.
That's true. And so we get introduced to the character Christian, who makes a habit of hooking up with straight men.
We all have a
And-
character flaw.
We do. I said it was a waste of time, and then my note right after is, my pics definitely have the most nudity, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
Well, we had a
And-
guest. We want to show him a good time.
I mean, look,
Is that how you
Make
show
sure-
your guests a
make
good
sure-
time, Joshua?
Make sure Jeff's not having being bored.
And may I remind you, it's not just nudity; it gets quickly to the nudity. So when we're talking
yeah.
about good time, we're not wasting any time here either.
Extraordinarily efficient.
let's be like just so transparent about this. They open with a scene of Christian giving this guy a blowjob, and I accidentally sent you all the unrated version versus the rated R version, and the only difference between the original and this is that scene. And in the rated R version, they have to pan away really fast because, networks are really queasy about how much like gay shit they can put in these sort of films, even at an R rating. The unrated version doesn't care. It's just like, nope, we're sitting here and panning in. We're going to show you these people who are sopping wet. Not to be like Ben Shapiro, but everyone is sopping wet in this film.
It's gross.
we consulted all of our doctor wives, and she said that that is a medical condition that we should be worried about.
No, we cannot have any more Ben Shapiro references.
No more. So we see that there are some young Mormons moving in next door to Christian, who is a waiter. And I hate making this reference, but hopefully there's a listener who gets it because it's not for my co host. This is just Vanderpump Rules for all of you Bravo people out there. It's a reality show about a bunch of people working in a restaurant. The best part is there's an older British lady who owns the place that's named after her. So, like, it's literally just Vanderpump Rules. And for those of you who know what that looks like, there is an older British lady who owns a restaurant in this film named Lila's. Her name is Lila. Vanderpump Rules is a story of a woman, Lisa Vanderpump, who owns a restaurant named Sir and then one named Pump. So...
That's another great porn name.
Yep.
Gross.
So we get to see all of the LA waiters doing what people in LA love to do and talk shit about LA. And they talk about how all of the Mormons are moving in next door. And Christian is taking a bet with these coworkers about whether or not he can seduce any of them. And the prize he has to get is their underwear, which they say is magical and sparkly.
So I have a question for the other people that aren't Michael. At this scene, were you worried that Michael just sent us a porno?
I mean, listen, the way the quality of the camera in this movie did give me like, oh no, ruh-roh.
I think it's important to like have in context the budget they had on this film, because between the lighting, the camera angles, and my God, the music, it feels like a porno.
The music.
Yeah, they spent $40 on a camera, $40 on a light.
So the best part is the actress who plays Julie, who we get in the next scene singing a song, is an actual songwriter who like has been trying to make it as a musician for a while. So you know just as well as I do, they cast for this role and they were like, hey, you want to like make some music and have some like free press, and definitely did not pay her for those musical scenes. They were just like, here's your actor flat rate, we're promoting your songs, we'll call this good.
This is what the union made us pay you, and not a penny more.
This comment I'm about to make is relevant to, I think you three are the only people I know who would get this, but it's like in Kingdom Hearts 3, where they just play the whole Let It Go sequence. There's the music video in this is just like that, where it's like, we're just going to show a music video now.
Yep.
It kind of gave me vibes like that weird show that Aaron had us watch that was about that animated show where there was just a Nero musical. But no one said I'm that bad boy named Nero, so 4 out of 2.
So when Christian introduces himself to the neighbors, they are living exactly the way that I've always envisioned a bunch of straight boys living. And that's like a bunch of fighting each other. It's very messy in there, and it's very cramped. I can't speak on the subject, but that's just always how I have imagined it.
So let me step in and like talk a little bit about Mormon missionary life.
Yes!
I thought you were going to say let me step in and talk about straight people.
Listen,
Yes, we start on a not all straight men.
Yes, finally! The heterosexuals unite!
Aaron and Jeff are like, we've seen your tweets, Michael.
So the fun part about being a Mormon missionary is you're typically going to be a 19-year-old person at the time of this film, or a 19-year-old boy, or now an 18-year-old boy was just the age limit. And so the typical experience is maybe you have a year of college, you're probably just out of high school, living away from home, maybe speaking a different language for the first time in your life. And so these are kids. These are really kids. And the fun part about having a bunch of kids live together is kids do stupid shit. And so they actually got this pretty close to correct. Like, this is a bunch of kids who are living together in a very insulated cultural environment where they are in a place that they don't know, but they come from common backgrounds. And so the way that commonly comes out is hypermasculinity. Like, it happens. And it's especially because you're living with other men, and the homophobic just a lot of the way that sexuality is portrayed and promoted inside Mormonism is there is one image, you got to push against it, or if it's homosexual. And so these boys will commonly go hypermasculine to make sure that they remind everyone, I am not a homosexual. That is real. That happens.
This is going to sound like a joke, but I mean it with all sincerity. So it's a lot like church camp.
Oh, yeah.
You just got like a ton of young boys alone together for the first time, and it's a lot of like, I'm a man because I'm alone for the first time,
Take
and
it this
no
way.
adults.
It's church camp in a frat house with a bunch of rules.
Oh,
My
God.
personal
And
nightmare. You said three things
no
I do
coffee.
not like. I actually did put in my notes that this reminded me of church camp, and actually the main character in a scene later reminds me a lot of how I felt at church camp was, oh, I clearly do not fit in with this in group. And, you know, I won't just specify this to Mormonism. I think it's like true of broader Christianity. There is an in group and an out group, and you want to be a part of the in group and not part of the out group. And you will like change behaviors, change your opinions, and mold yourself to get into that in group, because we're social creatures and we like to have a tribe, a group of people who's with us. So, you know, I do think that this film does a good job of showing that, and it's like the only quiet thing it does.
It is a loud movie.
Yeah, and speaking of loud, they loudly harass Christian because he had brought over a six-pack and was trying to like make friends with the neighbors, but also flirt with them a little.
Well, hold on.
And
I think you need to pause right there. You need to talk a little bit about the way that Christian is characterized. They take the prototypical example of how a homosexual man would dress in 2003, and they dress him like that every single scene, because he shows up in a tank top and the shortest of shorts.
in 2003.
Hold on. This is when we should let the listeners know Michael is just wearing a crop top and a Speedo.
All right, I'm gonna go change, and we'll be right back.
Why is it sequenced, Michael?
We'll be right back. Yeah,
Yeah, you guys have never vacationed with Michael, but yeah.
look, gays are allergic to sleeves, and we do not wear anything but the shortest shorts, and shorts belong above the halfway point of your thighs. Anything lower are basically pants and belong in the garbage.
If you want to know what gay shorts look like, just watch Basketball from like the 1950s.
Yeah, so he is in the shortest shorts possible, and I put in my notes, I would never get in my feelings over a bro telling me that my shorts were too short, because what? You looking at my legs? You're distracted? Whatever. You're in a fucking suit, dude.
In LA.
Yeah, it's hot. And so Christian is very much a stereotype. He is meant to be your party boy, gay boy from LA. We won't talk about how he and I have the same haircut right now.
Oh, I knew I'd recognize that hair somewhere.
So I have to throw away the 4 pages of notes, the only notes I've ever taken.
Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and skim right over that one. And so they have like a couple of interesting interactions, and you know, it is fascinating to watch these two kind of like flirt in these very overt ways, including, and I do sometimes wonder, like, putting myself back in a closeted headspace, would I have taken that as flirting, or would it have been one of those things where when you're in the closet you get in this mindset of everyone feels the same shame that you do, and when you end up coming out and like accepting yourself, you get to this point of, no, actually they don't. So I do wonder, like in these scenes with Christian and our protagonist, whose name is not mentioned yet, it is not Elmer, and like with them flirting, does our protagonist just think, oh yeah, this guy flirts a lot, but he feels shame too?
I think that, honestly, I think that you are trying to make this movie say a little bit more than it is. Because I honestly think 1,000% this is standard rom-com.
Oh, yeah.
It is just cookie cutter, like Hallmark movie, and I do not mean these as insults.
No, it totally is. But I, just I'm giving, to be completely fair, the one actor who seems like he showed up there to like really do a fucking job, who is now a farmer, by the way.
Wow. What a career.
He's also young.
I don't know why that
He's
makes
in his early
it so
40s.
funny.
Like, he's not like, 65 now and retired somewhere. No, he's just like, yeah, I had my fun in the gay Mormon movie and now it's time to pack it up and go home. So I love when the boys come over to Christian and Julie's house. And I love Julie. I think she's a great character in this film. I think so in a traditional rom-com, Julie would be played by a gay man. So I love that we get to turn that on its head a little bit.
They invert the trope, yeah.
Yeah. Because she really is like the sassy gay friend. Like, she says shit and she's like pretty selfish and gets to play that role for Christian. But when they come over, they nearly come to blows over two subjects. One being why, when God talks to a prophet, he's a prophet, and when me, not mentally ill, I'm sanitizing this language because it's 2020, not 2003.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they came to blows about, which I did learn on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, is that Black people were allowed in the Mormon church as leadership as late as 1978.
I don't want. That's, I think, one of the. It's one of the many. Mormonism and people who aren't white has a very rough history, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, so the quick version of it is it happened when Joseph Smith passed away. His successor was Brigham Young, and that was one of the policies that he put in. It was put in as a revelation that those who were non-white were marked with the mark of Cain and were unworthy to receive the full blessings of the church or the priesthood and the blessings of the temple. And because it was revelation, it took a revelation to rescind it, and that didn't happen until 1978. And so, in Los Angeles, only being 35 years after that, this would be still a hot topic, but especially when one of the characters in the room is Black.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually think that we should all be honest and say this isn't a Mormon problem. This is like a religion in America problem, because let's be real about how, like, even to this day, there are two different Southern Baptist foundations, one for Black people, one for white people. Like, we still have the same segregation. It's just, I think a lot of times it's easier for like national media and for, pop culture to get its mind around like segregation in our systems being undone. But because it is in the place of, like you said, like revelations, that is something that your layperson who's probably, if we're looking makeups of this country, probably a Christian, not super practicing, they're not going to look at that and say, that's part of my learned experience. That's weird. And there's going to be a hyper focus. So I think it's more of a Christianity/American Christianity problem, not unique to Mormons. But the point does still stand that, if you told me that gays weren't allowed in your church until 20 years ago, I wouldn't join, which is why I'm not a member of any church.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting looking at when this film was made. And so in 2003, this is a few years after what the LDS Church calls the Proclamation to the Family. So in 1995, in the environment after Hawaii allows same-sex marriage, the leaders of the church in Salt Lake City decided that they needed to do something to push back against it, and created this document that's pretty much a legal document, but is now, it's hung in Mormon homes, is this document that talks about the importance of the family, but it outlines what a family looks like, which is the 1950s era stereotypical nuclear family, husband, wife, children at home. And it talks about, in the end, there's this prophetic statement about how if these things are honored, then society will fall. And so this is 8 years after that. And a lot of people don't remember that that's why the proclamation came about, was because same-sex marriage was started to become a thing in the United States. But back in 2003, you're not going to have very many Mormons that really know very many gay people, because gay people, especially if you were Mormon, were not out of the closet. And that is a very different environment. And so it's kind of funny to look back at how out and proud this movie is in a time when that's not something that many Mormons were thinking about.
I also think that you could say, like, America in general was dealing with an intense homophobia problem at this time period, and most time periods. But like this is right around, like, I mean, you've got a president that's about to consider whether or not same-sex marriage should be outlawed in the Constitution. I don't know if that was before or after this, but it was pretty close.
1 year after George W. Bush ran on a platform, and Republican legislatures around the country put up amendments to their state constitutions banning same-sex marriage. And George W. Bush actually ran on the platform of, yeah, we love that on the national level too. States' rights, am I right?
We love it.
And yeah, this film is very out and proud for that. And I think that's very intentional. And, you know, the list of gay rom-coms are, I could probably count them on one hand and have some fingers left over. So I do love how refreshingly out this rom-com is, because while you do have a character coming out, you also have one character that has done that story before and has, and I'll get to some of this in my review later too, but has friends and interests on his own and like a life outside of that. And oftentimes queer stories are, they find out that they're gay together, they get together, one of them dies, the end. And
I mean, yeah, we just saw that with Destiny.
So we get a little flashback to before our, you know, elder, whose name we still do not know at this point in the film, and him going away to mission. And I love that they gave his mom pearls to show that she's conservative. Like, no one did any like heavy lifting on that. And you know, we get a scene with Christian and this very clearly gay Mormon boy where they're talking, and he's saying, hey, I'm not actually really close friends with my fellow elders. We just kind of met. And, you know, that is a reminder, like, yeah, you do have that shared experience that Jeff was talking about. Doesn't mean that these are your friends.
Like, I don't stay in contact with my church camp boys. They call me slurs now.
Now. So then Christian and this boy have a beautiful moment where they're flirting, where Christian thinks his name is Elmer instead of Elder. And I laughed out loud at this because it was so obvious that someone was like, God, we need a joke in here because, like, this is still supposed to be a comedy. And then, of course, not to make this confusing at all, we get his name, and his name is Aaron.
Yeah, that was my first note. It's like, good.
This won't be confusing.
Hey, last movie we had to deal with the Josh who sucked. So, you know what? We now have an Aaron in a movie that has
and
a lot of sucking.
Aaron, not to make sure that you're not alone on this, his last name's Davis. So as someone who spent 2 years being called Elder Davis, right there with you, buddy.
Man, this is why heterosexuals are oppressed in this country. We can't watch a single homosexual rom-com without being confused.
The best part of it is that, like, it's the two straights.
I know. They didn't even get the low-hanging fruit of everyone's named Michael, and every Michael is a little bit gay, so...
Oh.
Which is just a fact in life, I've learned.
It just really is. And so, the next scene that I feel like is of note, the basketball scene.
I love the basketball scene. That kicked ass.
I love the basketball scene. So we get this scene with two of the Mormons, Aaron and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I didn't take really a minute to learn his name. I just called him JGL in all of my notes because that's how my brain works. And he is pissy, and he's pissy in this entire film. He's just mad. He's little and angry, and he is mad that Christian and Julie are playing basketball. And they suggest a 2-on-2 shirts versus skins game. And at first, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like, no. And Julie gives this cute little rant where she's like, what is it? Are you afraid that you're going to be beat by a girl, or do you think I'm going to be too good because I'm black? Which one of your preconceived notions? And I love that because he has no answer to it.
I think some of the quips and writing in this movie is, like, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's rom-coms, especially from the early 2000s. Like, there was a punchiness to them where they knew they weren't reinventing the wheel with plot. So they were going to make some quips and some jokes because they also always had, like, this sense of drama about them. I love that they do a shirts and skins game, and that when Julie takes her shirt off, Joseph Gordon-Levitt runs right into the basketball pole. It's so good.
Yeah, as somebody who has also on a mission trip where we were not allowed to take our shirts off, I feel like that would have been my reaction too.
Remember, they're 19, 20-year-old boys who are probably virgins and very horny.
I mean, we do learn later that Elder Aaron Davis, because I now have to combine it to make sure we know who I'm talking about.
At all times.
He is, and I will from henceforth refer to him as Elder Aaron Davis for the rest of this film. He is a virgin. We know this. That is canonical in this world up until this point. I love that during their cute little scripture scene, the only one who knows anything is Aaron. And let me tell you, I have been in that position many a time where the very obvious queer kid is the only one that can quote the scripture right in a church group, so they're praised even though there's an obvious catch. And I just was like, yes, this is representation right here.
It just goes to show you the devil knows the most scripture, Michael.
I mean, I am a witch. That is also canonical, so...
Yeah, you did choose to live deliciously.
And I've never looked back. Speaking of living deliciously, while Christian is walking outside, he gets the most dramatic wound in a film I think I've ever seen.
What is he even injured by?
We watch God's Not Dead. That's not true.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Compared to this films on this podcast, this is actually pretty believable. It looks like the metal handle of a hose.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the thing that holds the hose to the wall. But this is also the moment that I'm pretty sure that Michael decided to make us watch this movie, is when this guy's ass gets cut, and it's a part of the plot.
And it is a big part of the plot, you know.
It takes up 90% of the screen.
The best part is that they have him in a whole ass jockstrap too, and like just gays casually wearing jockstrap. I'm like, all right, gay people were in charge of this movie. Like, all right. It was one of those where I wanted to like put in my notes, no, that's not true, and I knew that would be a lie.
I like to imagine that like a writer just went like, I'm going to live like the gays in the early 2000s and just really get involved and just really understand this culture. And they're like, you don't have to. He's like, no, I mean, you know, just for the research.
I mean, it is actually, to me, the scene where he gets hurt is one of the funniest scenes because, like, he bumps into it and, like, that would hurt and not feel great. And then he notices he's bleeding, has, like, 2 drops of blood, and passes the fuck out.
In his front yard. In the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I think this is a ploy.
Maybe
Listen, he just wanted an excuse to get his whole
Michael,
butt out.
I feel like this is unfair as a fellow gay who suffered from passing out.
Look, all the times I have passed out, it has not been because I saw a tiny bit of blood because I bumped my ass against a little, you know, water hose. It has been because I'm dehydrated.
Maybe that reminded him, oh man, I didn't drink water, and his body was like, right, time to die.
You don't get ab definition like that if you're eating or drinking, so...
Yeah, that is true.
We get a scene in which Aaron Davis helps our...
Nice pause there, Michael.
That's for the fans. The fan art.
the fan art. Good.
Everyone, please draw Aaron with a cut on his bum.
Aaron's like, great. I love this.
I love that for me.
Aaron Davis helps Christian inside the house and, takes off his shorts, revealing that he is in a jockstrap and his whole ass is out on screen for God, everyone, and the audience to see. And, he has the tiniest little scrape you've ever seen. It is like, I think they made it a point to make it small because they would cut the camera in a way that you just see his whole ass and you don't see the cut, which I found really funny.
It felt so much like, oh no, like in like a normal a normal rom-com. Oh my god. This is, yes, I'm gay. Yes, I'm homophobic. We exist. Oh, in a normal rom-com with normal people, not gays, where they'd be like, oh no, my shirt came off, a button got snagged, whoops.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this 1,000 times in rom-coms. It actually, I think its cinematic parallel is the Something About Mary scene with the hair gel.
I can only... Okay, I was about to say, that's the only scene of that movie that exists in my mind.
I'm getting blank stares. Do you guys know that film?
Yep. For that shot only.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. Aaron?
No.
Aaron was trying to get out of us explaining what this is.
I thought if I was quiet, we would move on.
No, the fact that you were quiet was like, it's like when a kid is quiet, you're like, oh, something's up.
Okay, next time when I don't understand something, I'm just gonna go, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when a kid hides when they go poo somewhere. Yeah, so, Aaron, that movie scene is, where they, the man is about to go on a date with the, Mary, and his friend informs him that you can't go on a date with a loaded gun, so he should, whack one off real quick, so he can go to the date not nervous. And he does, but he, misfires and loses his projectile. And then she opens the door, and he's a little panicked because he doesn't know where he fired his round off into. And he opens the door, and it's revealed that it's on his head. And she goes, "Is that hair gel?" And grabs some and uses some as hair gel.
Mm-hmm. That's the kind of
we can carry on
now. Quality you straights give us, so I will hear nothing.
Listen, that scene is
Cinematic
beautiful.
Parallels. So in this scene, Elder Aaron Davis admits that he's a virgin and is, very, very unsure about what's going on with him and Christian. They have this like sexually charged moment, and Christian's like, this can be just a good time. It doesn't have to be serious. To which Aaron gets very, very mad. And he refers to Christian as a marshmallow peep.
A walking, talking marshmallow peep. If someone said that to me, I'd crumble into fucking dust on the spot. It's such a good burn.
Colorful on the outside and fluffy on the inside, and yet again, I'm feeling attacked.
I was about to say, those are the exact things I've heard yelled at my brother.
After that, we get another scene of Christian going back to work in which he's posing the question to his coworkers. Do you believe in God? And one of them actually says the only appropriate response, like Madonna.
Okay, hold on. Do you know who that coworker is?
No.
It's Cyborg from Teen Titans.
Wait.
Oh my god.
Oh
Did
my
you not
God.
recognize the voice? I guess I most probably watched Teen Titans more recently
on,
than
so
the rest
you
of
missed-
you.
I haven't watched.
No, he didn't say
Joseph
booyah, so I wasn't
Gordon-Levitt,
sure.
but
Okay,
you're
alright,
Cyborg?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have my priorities straight, sir!
Roast his ass, Jeff. Get him.
Now you are truly welcomed. You've made jokes about every single one of us on the podcast. That is the initiation ritual. We don't haze you, you haze us.
Great. Much like all of the churches that we used to belong to.
We're all sweating now.
Not as much as this movie.
And so Cyborg, now, because now that will be his name, says that, yeah, he actually does have faith. If Christian wants to see what it's all about, he needs to meet him at 6:30 in the morning. And that seems like a tough call, but you know what? I appreciate Christian for sticking through. And right after this, we get a little montage of our friendly Mormons next door going door to door, passing out tracts. And this scene was really triggering for me because I remember distinctly doing this, and this will shock no one here, being the one that was always told to go to the door because I was the only one that wasn't too shy.
Oh god. Jeff, do you want to talk about your own missionary
Michael, do you remember-
experiences and the stuff you had to do?
Like, look, here's the thing about knocking doors. You do it when you have nothing else to do, and when you're on a mission for a couple of years, there's a lot of time where you have nothing to do because there are only so many people that are willing to talk to you. And so, poor Michael, it's where the extroverts thrive because that's where they get put.
Yep. Our church group decided that, you know, the older hands were better used, like doing the manual labor, like, you know, fixing things up. However, the young, cute ones should go door to door. And, you know, being a young, cute extrovert, I was always the one that was in charge of knocking and getting people to go because they had a hard time saying no to me. And I would definitely be the friend in this duo that is like doing all the door knocking and all of that and all the talking. And it would be so annoying. I would be the person that goes back to church and is like, this fucking dude didn't do anything. So one of the scenes is of them going to door is one of the most predictable scenes, but also the one that made me laugh, where this man answers the door and calls his partner Stacy over, and Stacy is a buff, shirtless man. And you know what? I gotta say, that would be the kind of shit I would do if people came to my door of any religion asking me to sign up. Like, if you can't roll with that, then I'm just not a good fit.
Well, and I think it's good to kind of like think about what's the purpose of evangelizing. It's not just to get converts, it's to solidify the people that are willing to go and do it for you. It's not just the only reason, it's not that the only reason why the Mormon church sends out 18, 19, 20-year-old kids to go and get people to baptize themselves into the church. It's also so that they can get 18, 19, and 20-year-old kids to commit to the church for a long time in their life. And going on a mission and really digging in and investing is a really good way to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I won't speak for Mormonism here. It builds a lot of donations which are tax-free.
Yep.
We can get into how rich
Big
the church
size.
is. It's definitely rich.
Yep. If it's a church, it's got money. And boys, we're in the wrong business.
I've been saying this for years. We do need to start a religion.
I think, honestly, like, let's think about it, boys. Let's think about it. This is the perfect
We
time.
more or less have an unholy trinity right here. So, Jeff, do you want to be our first disciple?
Well, I've already hazed you, so I think I'm part of the group already.
Yeah, I think so.
Our holy number is 4.
Love that for us.
Get fucked, Christianity.
So I just put a friendly little reminder, seeing as we are in a queer movie talking about AIDS, reminder that the U.S. government, especially Ronald Reagan, let queer people die en masse because it was good politics to do so.
Don't play Call of Duty Cold War.
Yeah.
This is an anti-advertisement.
Yes. This is the...
Is that
Correct me if I'm wrong, did
anti-ganda?
we ever like find out that our friend over here has actual AIDS, or is that just an unspoken thing that we're just supposed to assume in the scene? Because I thought that was kind of weird.
So I don't think they ever mention explicitly that he has AIDS. We're supposed to collect it from context clues because I don't really know how to say this next sentence given that in my brain this is this person's name. Cyborg mentions being positive since he was 17. So in the gay community, like if someone says they're pos or positive, you pretty much gather. And it's very clear that this film was made for the gays in mind. So we're supposed to collect that context clues. And when Christian's delivering this food to the sickly person who is on oxygen, asking for a cigarette, which was just such a funny scene, and I'm glad that they left it in there. We're supposed to like collect that, yes, he does in fact have AIDS. Especially when he mentions like he was living the party life beforehand, because, you know, a lot of a lot of like the US's culture around it was the gay lifestyle leads to AIDS. It was like the promiscuity, the drugs, the partying. And, you know, the facts of the matter is it was a very preventable situation that the US government was just like, it's killing off the gay people. They're quieter about asking for rights. Win-win to me.
And as we say every podcast, fuck Ronald Reagan.
Fuck Ronald Reagan. So the Mormon kids, Aaron and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, go to the hospital to pass out tracts, but then are demurred because the hospital says only like non-denominational pamphlets, which feels right for a hospital. Like, I don't want to be in the waiting room of a hospital and then be like, hey, here are your 15 different pamphlets of all of your buffet of religions you can choose from.
Well, and hospitals are fraught because...
Hey, one of these will get you to heaven. We won't tell you which.
I was just going to pop in and say hospitals are fraught because how many of them are you going to run to that are owned by a church? Like, you got to be...
That's what I was going to say. It depends on the hospital.
Yep. That's why I was glad to see this one deny it, because honestly, if I were sitting in a hospital waiting room and I saw pamphlets for just one religion, I would be like, ooh, I might be in danger.
I think I, again, would be somehow more weirded out if it had, like, every religion represented there. Or even just, like, here's Mormonism and Presbyterian. What the fuck is happening here, guys?
Those were just the first two to get there, and they had a limited number of spots. So we see Lila, who is, you know, the owner of the restaurant in the Not Vanderpump Rules cast, and she's outside crying because she had to pull the plug on her longtime partner. Aaron Davis goes beside her and comforts her and is so nice to her, while Joseph Gordon-Levitt is just kind of looking on and, like, is such an asshole when this woman just lost someone. Like, this is kind of the perfect time to talk to someone.
And I know what the audience is thinking. This is just too funny. We just need a break from this non-stop hilarity that has been the last 20 to 30 minutes. And don't worry.
Well, and I'll give the director some credit. What he portrays as Mormon, he gets right. He gets this missionary's family, he gets them right. Like, it's believable from a Mormon perspective. And he gets this experience pretty well. Mormon missionaries are trained to look for people who are in life transitions, who have gotten married or who've had births in the family or deaths. And because the Mormon theology is very centered around family and what happens to families in life after death. And that's could be kind of predatory. It's kind of a little harsh to be looking after, hey, have you had any deaths in the family? Guess what? We can talk to you about that and what that means with you and God. But this is actually kind of how it works. It's about, you know, reaching out to people and talking to them about what they believe and if they hope in life after death. And that was a pretty honest scene. And frankly, I thought it was one of the better performances in a scene.
Yeah, because I think it had the two actors who were, like, showing up to do their job the most. And I loved seeing that. The crying was subpar, but there wasn't as much fake tears as there was in our last recording. That's for sure.
They used all of it on their sweat.
Yeah, they definitely did. So Christian, we get another scene of him hooking up with someone. He wants to talk with his hookup, who responds with, I didn't know you were into that weird stuff, after calling himself Water Sport Mort. So
now, I have to ask, Aaron, do you know what water sports
Joshua,
is?
what do you take me for? Need I remind you, I did go to Catholic high school.
Wait.
I will not elaborate.
No more questions.
If you do that after communion, is it still water sports?
Oh,
What?
that's so enough out of you.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Yep, this is how chaotic our recordings always are.
We're all enjoying
Yeah.
this.
That's... Yup.
Well,
Aaron
I'm
less
having a
so,
good
but
time.
He'll be there.
I have never made Aaron happy once.
That's
ever.
true.
Speaking of scenes that make me happy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt got into an accident on his bike, and there is some divine retribution for being an asshole after all. However,
There's some kind of joke here about how he was in a movie that was all about, like, being a bike guy who delivered stuff, but no one saw that movie, or really this movie?
okay, that's actually a really fun fact about this film. There was a majority Mormon owned theater in Utah that refused to seat this film. I don't remember where it was, and they pulled out literally 2 days before. And another theater in Salt Lake City opened up for this film and had lines around the building for it. And it is such an example of how not to treat something controversial. If something controversial is going on, don't publicly pull your support from it, because you're just gonna then create an audience. Because let me tell you, even in 2003, 2004, Salt Lake City has enough people who know queer people or are queer themselves who will show up to this sort of thing.
Well, and Salt Lake specifically it's a pretty gay city. It's a very blue Democrat city, and despite the fact that the church is headquartered there. Here's the thing. There is a lot of overlap in Mormon culture and gay culture. And there are a lot of gay Mormons. And because there are a lot of gay Mormons, there are a lot of gays in Salt Lake City. And so when there's that story doesn't surprise me at all, because there's a lot of people who are pretty anti-LDS church. And if that's a really fast way to light a fire and get a lot of people to come watch.
Out of curiosity, what are just some of the overlaps between?
Oh, I'm so glad that Josh asked it. The big one's musicals.
Yeah.
There we go.
No,
God damn it.
there's a huge connection to Mormons and performance arts. That's my background. I mean, that's how most of my friends I met, because I did theater in high school, backstage and front of stage. And there's stuff like that. The Mormons are all over in showbiz. BYU is one of the biggest recruiters for Pixar, and it has a very world-renowned theater arts program. It has a world-renowned film program. There's a lot of. That's just one example, but there's a lot of gay people and LGBT people that come from showbiz, and it's a pretty safe place to be. And so if you're a teenager who likes showbiz and likes being in theater, maybe you want to go out in college, it's a pretty safe way for a lot of my friends use to come out and find a community.
That's kind of amazing, because at least for the Southern Baptist perspective, theater is not a thing that was looked kindly upon. Even the little plays and stuff that were put on, it almost seemed that they were we're bad, we know we're bad, because if you're good at theater, you know what that means. And I find that that's very interesting. I have an interesting relationship with musicals, but I'm glad that they're there and exist, and I don't have to watch them. It's great.
I love that the person who chooses all the musicals consistently hates on them publicly. I think he is a closet fan of musicals and goes to bed to the Cat soundtrack every night.
Memories is a shit song. I'm sorry for... The gay Mormons must hate me. That's who's disliking the video.
Yep. 100%. So, unfortunately, Aaron Davis looks for a little bit of solace, and he and Christian start kissing, and then the other Mormons walk in on them. And as you can imagine, it's not going to go well. So they take Aaron Davis out to a car in the alley and, get Christian out of there. He's like, yo, this isn't even a big deal. And in terms of kisses and how passionate they are, it was pretty low on the totem pole, but also we're not in a country or culture that if you kiss a man on the lips, it's not homosexual. So, there's not much there. But yeah, not great. Being whisked away to a car in the alley is never how you want a night to end.
Well, and he knows that the missionary Aaron knows what's going to happen. And you could say, oh, it's just a kiss. It's not that big of a deal. If you're a missionary, it's a huge deal. And if it's a male missionary with another man, that is a giant deal. because what we're talking about, what the movie is going to start getting into, is what's referred to as excommunication. And if he had kissed a woman, maybe he gets sent home, maybe he gets sent to another area. But as soon as homosexuality gets involved in any level for a member, but we're talking about missionaries who have made pretty intense commitments to the church, both in and out of the temple. And so the bar is getting slapped at him, and he like says there right to Christian, like, yeah, no, this is a pretty big deal. What's about to happen to me because I kissed you and I was seen.
Yeah. So then Christian comes back and talks to Joseph Gordon-Levitt and admits that, yes, he did start talking and flirting with Elder Aaron Davis for a bet, but he actually likes him for real now. And which he threatens to beat up Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I love that scene so much because it's what every bully deserves, is who you bullied to beat you up. And he tells him, hey, there's a 5-hour layover in Salt Lake, so you better get to driving. And he gets to driving because he gets there pretty fast. I mean, it's not a far drive, but still.
Is this where I like remind people that
He's gay,
Salt Lake
Michael.
is not a 5-hour drive from LA?
I was gonna say it's probably more like a 13-hour drive.
Yeah, the second and third acts of this movie really teleport their characters around the Western United States.
It's a rom-com, baby.
I'm sticking with he's gay.
Yeah, he just like drove 120 miles per hour the entire way.
In winter.
Yeah, got
In
into
the
3
snow.
to 4 fender benders.
God.
Yep. And yeah, it's snowing. And I actually thought that Snow Point was actually pregnant with meaning because the AIDS patient who Christian forms this bond with refers to himself as an oracle and says that, hey, I don't know if it's the meds, but I can see things about people, but with you it's just snow.
Like, this is a good movie. Like, they have a lot of, like, symbolism and like, analogy, and it kind of rules.
Yeah, I mean, this is really like a standard rom-com with just like moments like this that are so smart and so quick that you could blink and miss it.
Did they nonchalantly confirm Mormonism? Did they just confirm that there are Latter-day Saints?
No, I think that they confirmed that this gay person is an actual oracle, though.
Well, and I think I'm happy to lay praise on where this movie is really good, but I'm going to give like my biggest complaint of the movie. And if you go to the Wikipedia page and scroll down to critical response, you'll see that Roger Ebert's critique is in there. And his big thing is this movie tries to be 3 things at once. First, it tries to be a gay rom-com. Second, it can't decide whether or not it's going to attack the Mormon church or when it's trying to do both at once. And so tonally, it just jumps every now and then from the first to the second and back. And it's a little jarring because this where you can't really tell how this man, the screenwriter, feels behind the scenes about the Mormon church, but I think it's really complicated. And I think it really comes out in the story, even if it doesn't set the best tone.
Yeah, and I think, like, to be totally transparent, this film's strength is that A-plot of the rom-com, not the critique of Mormonism. And it's because it actually reminds me a lot of my other pick, Saved. And for those of you who haven't listened to that, you should listen to that. I think it's one of our, fun episodes where we talk about another rom-com from the mid-2000s. And in that, the film never decided how critical of Christianity it was actually going to be. So it kept getting there and then stopping right on the line, looking at the line, pointing the audiences to the line, and then would veer in the other direction to like teenage coming of age. And this film does the same thing. It will have these like pointed, very sharp, barbed criticisms of the Mormon church, and then switch scenes immediately back to a rom-com setting. And I think, Jeff, you really nailed it, that this comes from the director. Like, this is a feature, not a bug. This director feels as complicated about Mormonism as this film is, where it doesn't quite know how critical to truly end up being.
Like, it took me a really long time to get 1000%, like, I don't like the religion that we grew up in. Like that in a nuanced way, not a I'm mad for the things they did way. So I understand wanting to like avoid that topic, but I 1,000% agree with you guys, and that's definitely. I found that very jarring at moments.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that holds this film back from greatness, because there are moments in this that I'm like, and I'll get back to the plot in a moment. There are moments in this where I'm like, this film should be a classic, and then there are moments where I'm like, no, this is why it's not.
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
And so, to get back to some humor, Christian and Aaron Davis are gay because they're standing in the snow, poorly dressed for the cold weather. In fact, Christian has buttons open on his shirt, no coat on whatsoever, and that is gay rights.
Hoes never get cold.
And so Christian makes a Paul reference saying that Elder Aaron Davis showed him the light, which I think is really funny. And I love the trope of like an airport confessional of your love. Like, I just think it's great. I think it's wonderful. And so they kiss again. They go back to a hotel room because obviously 5 hours is actually 5 days. The layover is very clearly longer. The airport's closed due to snow. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's snowing, but like, it's not blizzarding. We can all calm down a little.
I don't know how airplanes work, Michael. I wouldn't want to. I don't want to fly if it's windy.
Fair.
Like,
but
it's made of metal. Metal's heavy, Michael.
It can be as accurate or as inaccurate as your willing to suspend disbelief will allow.
I'm just saying I don't know if I believe in flight.
So I think at this point my story of the film would end, because if I were Aaron Davis, I would just be like, cool, I'm not going home. Like, I'm packing up, going to LA. My parents are never hearing from me again. I also will admit I am cold-blooded, so I'm that kind of person that would just be like, sorry, I got a new phone, changed my number, you can't find me because this isn't the days of easy cyber stalking, and we'll get to that later. So, bye. But instead, after a long night of passion, and 2.5 hours of fucking, apparently.
My favorite part was him being
out loud.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny that he's like, oh, I didn't know how long you were supposed to do it.
Here we were talking about this movie's greatest flaw. I think it's a virgin having sex for 2.5 hours.
What, Josh, you can't routinely have sex for 2.5 hours? Wow.
If there's anything in this movie that felt like a porno, it's the end of the sex scene where they spend a minute talking about how long they had sex.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you need to drink some Gatorade. You are clearly all dehydrated.
Well, they're also, again, sopping wet.
It's so gross.
Like, they look like they just came out of the shower. But okay, not to get too disgusting for our straight friends in the audience, but
so worried.
There is no fucking way the sheets are that clean, there's no cleanup, and if they were that sweaty, I'm sorry, that's just not how that fucking works. That, to me, is the most unbelievable thing in this film.
I don't want to even think about what that room smells like now.
Aaron is praying for his...
Can we move on?
No, Aaron, this scene is 10 minutes long, so we're going to spend 10 minutes.
Aaron, you're the nurse.
Aaron, we're not leaving until you make a joke.
It's not... Listen, I have no problem with shit and blood and piss. It's more having to hear my friends talk about what they think a room would smell like after 2.5 hours of passionate lovemaking.
My brother was the one who had to hear me say that. Imagine.
Listen,
how
you two decided to do this podcast together. This is both of your faults.
This is when Aaron chooses his judgment of my brother and directs his energy towards me too. Look, it is not my fault.
It is explicitly your fault.
I was just born this way, Aaron. I don't know why you're hating. Aaron confirmed biphobe.
As if. So, when Christian wakes up, Aaron Davis is gone. He apparently went home. And this is his biggest mistake, but I also think that like all of the context Jeff provided makes it really in character and understandable as why. Like he's probably like an 18, 19-year-old. This is like his first real world experience and probably thinks he can reconcile the two worlds and probably feels some guilt and wants to go back home. But like his mom won't look at him, won't touch him, won't give him the time of day. And frankly, like I would just be like, oh, cool. You don't want me here. I don't really want to be here. Like, let's shake hands and call this a business deal. Don't call me, won't call you. But Aaron Davis is a much nicer, much more warm-blooded soul than I am.
I want to point out that you have had that exact discussion with family members.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just, yeah, I'm gay, I get it, you don't like it, we'll never talk again, it's cool.
Not so much of a discussion, just more of like a statement of facts. And
Yeah.
I put down here something that I feel very strong with. If you can't handle your kid coming out to you, you shouldn't have kids. It's just one of the potential futures you sign up for.
Yeah, and again, let's, in 2003, like, it is a very different thing for a kid coming out, let alone having gay sex on their mission, than it is in 2020 for Mormons. Like, this would have been a huge deal, and it still would be a huge deal. And we'll get into the scenes where the excommunication like is portrayed, but like when I say that they got the family right, they got the family right in this one. And it's really jarring because they have that flashback scene to the airport where he's being dropped off earlier in the movie, and it's all warm and there's excitement and there's, oh, I'm excited that you're going to be a missionary, and the mom is cold in the last act of this movie. Like, she is brutal. And I don't think that the director is clear in his critique of the church or the Mormon church as an institution in this movie, but he is definitely critical of Mormon families in this movie, because that is one of the strongest story points that comes out. Because you're right, she doesn't touch him, she doesn't hug him, they just get straight in the car and it's business as usual.
Yeah. And
It is very jarring, because like I'd be angry if my kid didn't have gay sex during their Mormon mission.
yeah, but that's you
Like,
as a parent.
I'd be so upset. Like, you had one job.
Your kids will all have to come out as straight to you, and it's gonna be funny watching all of them come out as straight, and you, like, last kid being like, oh, I hope.
Yeah, and then I'll disown them.
You'll suddenly be cold, you'll wear pearls for some reason.
This is the future liberals want.
And so, we walk in. Christian apparently left without telling Julie where he went, and kind of explains what just happened. And she's like still working on her music, which I think is a cute little C plot that like we didn't really need, but I'm kind of glad we got it.
It ends up being relevant at the end in like kind of a stupid way, but like, listen, that lady needed to save on this actress's budget, so they let her shoot several music videos during this film.
And this next scene we have to take a minute to digest, even though it's a flash. I forgot completely, this was scrubbed from my memory, the crucifixion dream.
Oh,
It's
man.
a lot.
It's yeah. Holy cow.
Like if this movie had like 20% more budget, that would have been like absolutely like chilling. But since they, didn't have the resources, it was just like regular, like a pretty good scary imagery.
Now, Aaron, did you ever have dreams like that?
No, I just did like passion plays on my carpet with my parents. Like that's, it wouldn't be a
Normal.
bad thing. It would be like a cool, fun family bonding activity.
Yeah. You all get together. It's very Midsommar, Aaron. I don't know why that film was so jarring for you. Like, you're getting together for a group activity to celebrate a, sacrificial death.
I didn't like Midsommar for many reasons, which you can listen to in our Midsommar podcast.
I'm just plugging every episode.
This has been the most reference-heavy episode we've ever had, and it's just because we're so happy that we have confirmation that a fan exists.
One person listens, yeah.
One
Yeah,
person
we're just-
listens. We're just giving all the references for Jeff.
Yeah. Oh man, our views are gonna suck on this one.
That's all right. So then we get to the excommunication scene, and I called it the court for homosexuality, and I also put right after guilty bitch, because that would be my plea.
Well, and I think that there's a lot going on in this scene, and I think it's important to mention it's a musical montage because we're cutting back and forth. But what's portrayed in the movie is what used to be called as a church disciplinary council. I think it's called a membership council now. The church recently rebranded it because it's pretty dang harsh. What happens is if you are a priesthood holder in the church, you are called into pretty much a court of 15 up to 15 other male members of the church, and it's going to be, like what they call it, the high council, and then the stake presidency, which is pretty much the 15 local bigwigs in the stake or diocese. And so these are 15 very straight, white, heterosexual males in Pocatello, Idaho, that are going to kick him out of the church for kissing a man and then having sex with him on a mission. And it gets it right. I mean, even it's like a musical montage is kind of an interesting way to do it, but like I love that like the most anti-Mormon Barb comes in this scene.
What do you think it was?
It's when he pushes back. I want to know if any of the three of you caught it actually.
Yeah, I saved it in my notes, so I'm really glad because I saved a couple of good quotes from this film, and that's one that I saved, the one where he's arguing with him about the polygamy.
Yeah, so he points out in the middle of this disciplinary council, hey, we are all descended from a bunch of polygamists. Maybe we're not the best exemplars of traditional families and nuclear families in general. And it's like the one time where not even the script, but definitely the character pushes back on the image of Mormonism that he's being expected to uphold and just decided not to follow.
Yeah, I thought that, it's so funny because I had my cursor on that in my notes and have it in all caps because I just thought it was such a good scene. I paused to make sure I got the quote right. It really is such a powerful moment because, again, context here, this is like an 18, 19-year-old who just, had sex for the first time ever, is dealing with the fact that he's gay, having dreams of being crucified, and he's sitting in front of these powerful leaders, one of which is his father, and he has to defend himself. And I really appreciate that they gave him that moment because I feel like that's probably a moment that every queer kid raised in conservative religious circles wishes they got to have, of standing up to these systems. And he actually got it. Unfortunately, it's not the end of his situation here, but
I do think that they're if you look at pop culture understanding of what Mormonism is, it is, oh, that's the polygamy religion, right? Which is not. I find that weird because that's not something that's been a part of the religion for a really long ass time. And I do think that I am glad that they mentioned that at least, so non-Mormon viewers can be I was right. That was a thing I knew.
Well, and it really is the only thing that I'd say lay people, if people know one thing about Mormonism, it's probably that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't understand, because that's not my favorite Mormonism fact.
No, and I don't know, it just, it would be if all people knew about some religions were speaking in tongues, and a lot of that gets swept under the rug, but...
Yeah!
Then, we get this, so first and foremost, I don't remember which one of these happened chronologically, but I'll ease in. We'll talk funny first, and then we'll get serious. I was so reminded in this film how early 2000s it was because they did not show Google, and they had a different search engine instead. And I was reminded of how hard it used to be to cyberstalk someone. Do you know how easy it would be now even to find Aaron Davis Mormon in Idaho? I mean, come on. If there is an Aaron Davis in Idaho, first of all, we need you on this podcast.
Hit us up.
For a
Please.
special episode. Second of all, I could find you with a cursory Google search. But no, Christian has to go through pages and all these calls just to find the right Davis household.
And you you know that Elmer Dave, his mom definitely has a Facebook account, and she definitely uses it a lot. And, you know, this cute guy seems to be making some valid points on her Facebook.
Oh god, you're extremely right.
Yep, yep. His mom was 100% radicalized by Q. She believes that the vaccine is a plot, and we know all about who exactly this woman is. She also has a Women for Trump banner still on her page on November 23rd, 2020.
Well, and to put a
But
plug in for like how well written the Mormon sides of this one is, like, this kid is from Pocatello, Idaho, which is small town in southeastern Idaho. And as far as like Mormon brands, you've got like Utah Mormons who are going to be like your intense, we send everyone on missionaries, we're the heart of the church, we're pioneer families. Then you have Nevada and Idaho. And if you're in rural Nevada and Idaho, the kind of Mormon that you are is Ammon Bundy. So if you know who Ammon Bundy is, you're going to have that kind of libertarian, conservative style Christianity. So they
yeah.
placed, if that helps you understand like what kind of background the mom and dad have in this movie, there you go.
Now, which one are the Cullens?
The Cullens?
Yes. yes.
Twilight.
Oh,
They are the ultimate swing voters, but we'll get to that on our Twilight podcast.
and they're the mythical Pacific Northwest Mormon.
Yeah, much like Bigfoot.
There are about as many.
Yep. And okay, so now we're going to take a bit of a turn because Aaron Davis's mom is a virulent homophobe and basically says God can't forgive him if this is who he is, not a decision he made. And like, that is truthfully like something that I heard from like church people coming out. Like, that wasn't shocking to me to hear, and is also like, that hurts to hear, but goddamn if it's not a true part of like coming out in like religious conservative circles. And you know, like, this is where I talk about a little in my notes even of like talking about being in or out. And you know, Mormonism is much like the rest of Christianity with this, where you do have your in-group. Mom's part of the in-group. These families, you know, her son's a missionary. They're supposed to be part of the in-group. And instantly when he is saying, like, this is who I am being gay, that puts him on the out. And that, you know, I don't have, like, my cup doesn't run over with empathy for his mom because of how she reacts, but also that is a jarring change to your world when your family is in and now suddenly they're out. And, you know, in her eyes, her son's soul is at stake. And people are willing to do and say a lot of awful shit if your soul is at stake.
yeah,
And it's tough.
this is when I'll, you know, kind of just put my 2 cents in on, so in the chronology of like LGBT and Mormonism is, you know, in 2008 is when Prop 8 happened. And then, you know, so that's when Mormonism comes around in the news for the first time in a few years. And then Mitt Romney runs on his campaign and everyone's asking him about polygamists and gay people and what the church thinks about both. And then in 2015, the church enacted what is colloquially referred to as the policy of exclusion, where they changed their membership requirements and said if a member is married or is in a long-time partnership with someone of their same gender, we will excommunicate them just on the face for being gay. And it was a huge moment in the church, and a lot of people resigned their church membership and sent paperwork in and said, nope, I can't be a member of this church anymore. And a lot of people have left. And I kind of consider that one of the big points in which me and quite a few of the people that I know kind of stepped away, because everyone knows someone who is gay or bi or trans. And it is harsh, because when you have a church that sets up the idea that the family is sacrosanct and the family can be eternal, but if you don't follow these sexual rules, you're kicked out, that is extreme. And it's something that is just not cool. And one of the things that came out in the news this year is that the Trevor Project produced a study that showed that when a teenager called into the National Suicide Hotline, if they mentioned that they were Mormon and suicidal, there was a very high correlation to that they would be gay. And that is just horrifying to me. Like, come on. We have got to do better. In Utah, we have one of the worst teenage suicide rates, and it is just deplorable. And this movie really just lays home a thesis that this is not okay, the way that this family treats this young man. And I'm glad that it's in here, and I'm glad that it's the story that it decided to tell.
Yeah, and like I don't know, it is such an important part if you are someone coming from a religious background, it's such an important part of your story that you kind of can't make a film without it, right? Like you can't make a film without this. And, you know, later Aaron Davis tries to kill himself. And, you know, I feel like if you really dig deep into the numbers of queer youth, the suicide attempt rate is higher, and unfortunately, like just the suicide rate in general is higher, and it's even higher when they're attached to a religious group. And, you know, I think his mom's reaction and his dad's reaction, right? Like his dad's never home, his mom won't look at him in the eye. Like you start feeling isolated. And the last thing someone needs when they're going through a big life-changing moment is to be isolated.
And especially when the church like, I feel like Mormonism has a very specific relationship with the church being such a big component of like life, because it puts such a big emphasis on the family, and like losing your family I think holds just even more weight when that's pushed like to you throughout your life. So having that removed, I have to imagine that's even more jarring than even as jarring as it sounds normally.
Yeah, especially so because the Mormon idea of heaven is heaven shared with your family. And the idea that if you didn't make it, you ruined it for everyone else. So it's not just like, oh,
Yeah.
we're kicking you out of the family because you're gay and we don't want you having Thanksgiving dinner with us. It's we don't want you in the house because you ruined our eternal family in heaven.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's I have to lighten the mood just so briefly because I have at this point in my notes, let Jeff talk about the relationship of Mormonism and homosexuality. And I love that that's exactly where we're at, because I knew you would have such smart things to say and like teach us all something. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, like as much as it sucked to hear, it is important to hear, and I am very happy to get information from somebody who actually knows what they're saying.
Yeah, and like honestly, the scene is tough when Aaron Davis is like, you know, ready to commit suicide, and like they juxtapose that with Christian celebrating that he found the right household by going out and clubbing. And I don't think this scene is meant to be read any deeper than what it is. Like, I don't think it's some like deep critique of Christian. I think it's just meant to show how different their lives are. Because the director of this film actually said that he felt at different points of his life he was both Aaron Davis and Christian. And that he always wondered, what if these two people met? And I find that so fascinating. And, you know, I think this scene really shows that. And Christian calls again, and Aaron Davis's mom answers, says that he had slit his wrist, implies that he's dead, and says that she hopes that Christian burns for this. And it's just like a tough scene, and we get to like kind of see what Christian deal with that. And, you know, a lot of this film is showing him growing feelings and growing maturity, and he's just flat out depressed. And, you know, his boss calls him to talk to him. It's just like a ton of really deep moments. And, you know, I do think, too, I like that this film touched on a quick moment of conversion therapy, because that's where Aaron Davis ended up. And, like, that's torture. Let's just call it what it is. And the fact that we live in 2020 of the year of our Lord, and it is not a federal... there's not a federal law protecting queer people from conversion therapy is obscene. It's purely obscene. And like, you know, the shock therapy that they portray in this film, that may not be a popular practice, but that is things I've seen in documentaries, things that I've heard of busts of conversion therapy camps. Fun fact, they are often not in the US because our laws are stricter about what you're allowed to do. They tend to be offshore somewhere. So they literally ship their kids somewhere else. In fact, one of the actors in, I think it was God's Not Dead 3, did a documentary all about this. And it's just wild. It's totally wild. And, you know, I mean, we get to see Christian interacting with everyone. We see Julie reading his memos that he keeps that are usually about, like, his conquests and are now him being really depressed. And, okay, I found it unbelievable that he was not posting all of this on, like, you know,
MySpace, yeah.
Or LiveJournal. Like, there were places that you put this up. Like, he wasn't just keeping this in notes on his phone.
On a 2003 phone. Journaling on a 2003 phone, and that's where I, leave the chat and don't believe the plot of the movie anymore.
Yeah. That is the least believable thing in this film.
Which social media site today do you think this Christian would have just dominated on?
TikTok.
Because I think... Oh, I was gonna say, this is not our Twitter star. This is 1,000%.
No, he knows.
This is our Insta thought.
Christian knows he's pretty, and so he'd be all over gay Insta.
Yep.
Honestly, like, he could have a pretty decent OnlyFans, I think.
But every other post would be about his OnlyFans, so.
Oh my god, yeah. Did you know I'm the top 2%?
Christian actually decides to go to the Davis's house, and to me, this is such a wild leap of, like, struggling to find their phone number to just, like, pulling up on their front door from California, and, like, he has a car. So either he drove from LA to rural Idaho, or he flew in, rented a car, drove to this house.
Well, in this movie's America, that's like a 6-hour drive?
I'm actually looking it up right now. It is, let's see. By car, Los Angeles to Pocatello is 13 hours.
Holy shit.
God. America's too big. Hashtag shrink America.
So Christian arrives and has the stopwatch that Aaron Davis was carrying around with him and left in their hotel room. Yes?
Is that how they knew it was 2.5 hours?
The stopwatch.
He started, he was like, hold on, wait, go!
Wait. Go!
I'm sure when my great-grandfather passed this down, this is what he had in mind.
Just looking at the
was
clock.
An oracle, and he was like, you'll get a use out of this someday.
A wink!
One of my descendants will have hot, steamy gay sex with this watch.
So Christian then returns to LA, where it is pouring the rain.
Which, come on, it's LA.
I mean, yeah, they're known for their rainy times. And so Christian has some nightmares of electroshock therapy to Abercrombie models. It is so deeply concerning because then you, like, show the juxtaposition of his nightmares with, like, Aaron Davis's realities with the ice packs, the electroshock. And, like, friendly reminder, this is how his parents reacted to a suicide attempt. They were like, all right, we clearly need to get this gay out of you, so we're just going to torture you when you're in a fragile mental state.
And ship you off to a residential treatment facility. Like, it's not just, not in home, like, we have to send you somewhere because it can't be here. We can't fix you here.
No. You have to, like, be detached from your family. And it is just so bleak. And, you know, it is one of those things where I think it's tough, and I don't envy the filmmakers for having to cut back to, like, the rom-com moments. Because it's tough. It's tough to, like, bounce back from that, if you ask me.
This was right around the point where I went, man, I really wish he had made us watch a porno.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, this is where I was like, oh, I don't like this movie anymore. I'm sad.
This movie was meant to make you feel every emotion, and I think we officially covered all of them.
I was like, remember when they made Jeff Gordon Levy, whatever, fucking what's his name?
Joseph
Levy
Gordon-Levitt.
Johnson. Jensen Gordon-Levitt.
Who are you talking about?
Eugene Levy. What's his name?
You're just like saying random names. Are you having a stroke right now?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Do you smell
I'm very
burnt toast?
stressed. It's 2020. Don't be mean to me. Remember when this movie had Joseph Gordon-Levitt, got it in one, running into the basketball pole like a cartoon character?
Yep.
Yeah, same movie as it turned out.
Well, and
God, that
next,
joke was so worth it.
And next we get Julie and Christian back at their place where she has gotten a VCR in the mail of her new music video.
God, I miss those days, huh?
I mean, just the sentence VCR mailed to you is enough to let you know when this movie was shot.
I was really hoping they were like, it's from Netflix!
So Julie turned Christian's journal into a song.
Yeah, that's
So
no good.
fucked up.
I said I'd kick her ass out of my apartment, and right after I typed that note down, she was like, and I don't know how to tell you this, they want me to move to New York. And I'm like, well, I'd be like, bye. Aaron Davis sees the film, or sees the video, and he goes searching for Christian. And he first arrives at Christian's apartment and knocks on the door, and there's a shirtless man there who's like, wait, you want me to like give him a call or leave him a message? And Aaron Davis is kind of heartbroken, distraught. And so he goes to Lila's restaurant where he talks to her. And this is where Lila lays out her reasons for not being Mormon, which are actually the same reasons I'm not a Mormon. Your church doesn't like alcohol or homosexuals. Well, I'm definitely not joining. Can't imagine heaven without both.
Hard sell.
Yeah, I mean, that I have long said Christianity is not for me because it's too dour, and then this too, like, come on.
They had me with the golden plates and, you know, New York being like a holy place. But then they really lost me with like every sentence afterwards.
So Christian sees Aaron Davis, who he thought was dead, drops the food he was carrying. Lila, so the two of them embrace, and then Lila says, oh, he's an excellent tipper.
Which I need to point out, this is the first time that you see a single customer in the restaurant.
Yeah.
They went out of business immediately.
It's why my Vanderpump Rules reference is so funny, because there are never actually people in the restaurant. It's always the servers drinking together.
Michael, this is the first time that you took the Green Brother responsibility of digging in deep for a joke that just will not land with this group.
The best part is we're going to have audience comments being like, I love Vanderpump Rules.
It's funny
We'll
that
have
you think we get
audience
audience
members
comments.
Just you wait. This will be the one that does it, I believe.
There we go. If this is
is
our
the
big
cast that
break,
blows up.
I'm down.
Yes, and so we actually get a cute little happy ending scene with Aaron and Christian and the rest of the wait staff, and they're all like talking and chatting, and you know, Aaron Davis is actually happy, and I'm not sorry for picking this film because neither of them die, and that is a victory for queer romance.
Yeah.
I was real worried. I was like, Michael hates Bury Your Gays. This dude's fucking dead. What the hell?
Well,
but I know
that's
you
what
would.
I love about this. It fakes you out.
You didn't do us dirty, and I appreciate that.
So what was everyone's thoughts about this film?
Better than
Too
it had any
serious.
right to be.
Yeah, if I had just told you the details of budget of under $1 million, movie about a gay Mormon by a gay Mormon, in which they both criticize the Mormon church and have a rom-com situation going on, you would not think it's a good film. And this film, sometimes I think it's trying not to be a great film. And at the end, kind of lands there accidentally, I think.
It was really fun, and I could definitely see myself watching it again just to show people, like, this surprisingly good movie. But I don't think I'll lead up with, it's really fucking funny. 'Cause boy, does it get sad.
Yeah, I think the director and screenwriter is really a slave of the story he's trying to tell, and what makes this good
Mhm.
movie a good movie is not what traditionally makes a movie good.
Yes, that's really well put.
It, I, I don't know if I can think of another movie that did land all of the emotions as well as like this weird Renaissance painting of a movie.
It really does make you feel every emotion. And sometimes you're like, wait, this is like a cheap filmmaking play to make me feel this emotion, but you still feel it anyway.
Yeah, like they open with a graphic blowjob, and like I'm like, okay, this is the movie we're in for. No.
And it's
Nope.
not at all.
I do love that I collectively got to psych all three of you out by like that being the opening scene of this film.
I think my exact words were nice.
So, in the grand tradition of our podcast, we like to assign a rating. And I would love to hand the reins to our guest, Jeff, and have you start off with a rating. We all have our own bits, as you know, and you can rate this film whatever you want.
So one of the best scenes in here is the fact that we get to know the couple, Christian and Aaron Davis, in a scene where it's clear that he has no idea how to make laundry or do laundry, and he's about to throw all of his laundry in one load. So that's what I'm going to call this movie: one mixed bag load of laundry.
I love that.
I think I am going to give this one. Fuck, I was googling because I couldn't remember the name of it. I came up with this bit beforehand. Oh fuck!
I feel like,
this
Aaron, you should keep this in, and we should leave out his actual review.
What?
I would do that, yeah.
Aaron just edits in himself going 4 out of 5 stars.
Honestly, if I were in charge of editing, I would edit out your review and just keep this part in.
I'm gonna give it 1 Angel of Moroni, because I think it's weird as fuck.
What do you got for us, Aaron?
I'm gonna give it the non-canonical 15th Station of the Cross, which is Jesus Comes Back from the Dead, which I did see in a weird Passion play once a couple of years ago. Very funny, because we did get a queer person who we thought was dead, but they came back. Hooray!
And you know, sticking with queer people, I am going to give this film 3 out of 5 gay Mormon neighbors because, you know, it is a pleasant surprise through and through. Not a perfect set, but that's all right. I'll take it for what it is.
Oh god. This was a wild ride. Again just want to say thank you so much, Jeff, for being a part of this. Your insight was completely invaluable. And it was just such a refreshing, change of pace to have somebody who actually knows what they're talking about on this podcast. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
It's been a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
thank you. It's
Yeah, thanks, man.
so fun having
Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I mean, this is not the Mormon media I thought we'd get. This is a really fun way to spend some time thinking about how interesting Mormons are when they run into gay people, but damn it, Michael, why'd you make us watch this movie?
Because everyone had a better time than they expected.
Oh, where can people find you all on the internet?
So I'm on Twitter at Jeff Jack Davis.
I'm at Green History on Twitter.
I'm at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
I'm at Aaron SXL on Twitter. You can also listen to the other podcast I do with my friend Layla at Mortified Pod. We just released an episode where me and Layla talked about the end of R.F. Kuang's Poppy War trilogy, The Burning God. And also we did a little brief segment about our birthdays, so it was a good time. Highly recommend, especially if you are into grimdark fantasy.
Good ass book.
It is, absolutely. What are we... Josh, I think it's your turn next week?
Oh fuck, is it? Fuck, what movie do I want to make? I thought it was your turn because I don't remember weeks. Y'all want to watch Twilight?
No.
I mean, always, but
I that's so much work though. It's like Cats again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that was so hard.
We'll give you some time to think about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a mystery for all of us,
There we go.
including me.
Excellent. Well, if the thought of us watching Twilight makes you want to cry, just know that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.